So in this piece of using statistics to think critically about racial justice, we're going to be looking at the very common-cited information regarding race deaths by police shooting. We're going to be using the Washington Post data from 2015. The Washington Post has arguably the most accurate data set regarding race deaths by police shootings. In fact, it is still maintained. And we're going to be using their 2015 data here specifically because I also have access to the 2015 census data, which we're going to see in a moment is going to be really important. So here's the raw data from the Washington Post 2015. So we can see here, white Euro-Americans, 494 deaths, black African-Americans, 258 deaths, Hispanics, 172 deaths, other 38 deaths, and unknown racial designation, 28 deaths. So if we're looking at these numbers right here, and we're thinking about the impression they convey when we're looking at them, it's that there's more Euro-Americans are shot and killed by the police. And indeed, if you're looking at these numbers alone, most people are left with the impression that Euro-American individual is almost twice as likely to be shot and killed by police than an African-American individual. I get this cited to me a lot. This is a real common thing that's brought up. It says actually we're twice as likely to be shot and killed by police than black people. The factor that's being left out from this is that these groups are not of equal size. So when we're looking at the title up there, when frequency rates alone are not enough, this table right here from the Washington Post data that shows the race and deaths, this is a raw frequency rate data table. So when frequency rates are just a counting of events. However, they're not always enough, and that is specifically when you're looking at populations or subgroups that have different sizes. So if we're going to get an accurate sense of the proportion of individuals that are being shot and killed by the police, specific to race, which as a person, for example, who's African American, that's what you really want to know. You want to know how much more likely are African Americans to be shot and killed in their interactions with police than Euro Americans. However, we've got we've got various different sizes here. So we see from the census race data, Euro-Americans made up 77.1%, African-Americans are only 13.3%, and indeed Hispanics in 2015 made up 17.6%. So when we're working with this particular data, we can see we obviously cannot make raw comparisons across these numbers. We're going to need a further calculation, and that's going to be the relative frequency distribution. So when we're doing the frequency distribution, we're going to see that we're going to replace these raw number counts with percentages. The percentages then allow us to make accurate comparisons across populations or samples that have different sizes. So we're going to take a look at the calculations for that real quickly. Here is the stuff that I make my students do in my class. You guys are not going to have to do it, but it's important to get a grasp of what the formula is so you can understand it. So the formula is basically going to be, in this case, the number of people shot and killed by the police in that particular racial group, and we're going to divide that by the total number of people in that race, okay? And once we have that number, we're going to times it by 100 to get a percentage. All right, and then we can use these percentages to make comparisons. So we can see here we have our white Euro-American calculations with the number of Euro-Americans shot and killed by the police in 2015. We have the total population of Euro-American individuals in the United States in 2015 according to the census, and we're going to take that and multiply that by 100. And here, of course, are the further calculations that I would be making my students do in class. So once we've got these raw numbers, and again, you would do this for anything that you're interested in. You would simply have, where it says death by race amount, you would include whatever event it is that you're interested in. Okay, we could use this, for example, if we wanted to look at proportions of individuals dying from COVID-19, for example. We would be able to look at that, or we would be able to look at something more positive, such as number of people graduating from college and looking at that college graduation rate by race. So any of the events that we're interested in, that goes in the numerator, and then in the denominator goes your total population or sample size. And of course, make sure you times it by 100 if you're going to be doing these calculations yourselves. So when we're done, we get a piece of table that looks like this. Again, we see the deaths, that's our raw frequency counts. But when we do it by the percentage of the race population, we get some different information to add into our comprehension. So if we're looking at this data, we can draw several conclusions. All right. First of all, come on, data. First of all, yes, more Euro-Americans are shot and killed by police than other races. But the proportion of the African Americans that shot and killed by the police was 3 times that of the Euro-American. All right, due to the percentage of Euro-Americans in the race population in 2015. So the raw statement is correct, but really misses the point. African American individuals 3 times more likely to be shot and killed by police in 2015 than a Euro-American individual, and they were almost 2 times more likely to be shot and killed by police in 2015 than a Hispanic individual. So if you find yourself having these conversations, I haven't been seeing them as much lately, but I'm kind of expecting them to come back up again. Obviously, with the ongoing events, you may want to take a screen capture of this or jot it down in your notes so that you can refer to it. You probably don't want to do all the whole calculations. If you really wanted to overwhelm the person you're conversing with, you could do that. But the key points would be to focus on in that conversation are that we're looking at that the deaths are just per frequency rates. They're not adjusted to account for the fact that people in those different racial groups have a larger number of individuals in those racial groups in the United States of America. So we've got to convert that to a relative frequency or the percentage of the race population to be able to get an accurate understanding of who is in fact getting, is at a higher risk individually for getting shot and killed by the police. So hopefully this was very helpful for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions.